Tonight at 7 o'clock via Zoom, the Mansfield Center is hosting a legendary newsman. You might remember Sam Donaldson from ABC. Well, he's going to be taking part in a discussion, a forum, if you will, and you can listen in. And joining us now is one of the moderators of that discussion later tonight, and Newsy national correspondent Maritza Giorgio. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I want to hear this story about how this all came together.
Right. Well, I'm on the board of the UM Mansfield Center. It was founded by an act of Congress in 1983 with a dual mission, and that is to foster ethics, integrity, democracy, but also international engagement. We thought no better person than Sam Donaldson to do that, and Sam Donaldson happened to be a very good friend of my grandfather's, who was in the broadcasting world for a long time. His first station was actually right here in Missoula, Montana, back in this 50s, oh boy, late 50s, early 60s.
A long time ago.
Long time ago. And so he actually worked in DC, worked alongside Sam. They became good friends, produced a documentary together, and I reached out and pulled a favor and said, could you please do this? Because we really want to talk about the importance of journalism in a democracy. And who better to do that than Sam Donaldson, who literally worked in Washington, D.C. covering politics and foreign affairs for 52 years.
Well, I mean, you talk about the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, Watergate, all of the major events of that. Well, yeah, I mean,
Obama,
it goes on and on and on. So how do you narrow down your questions here?
Gwen Florio and I are asking the questions. We're moderating this. We certainly have agonized over what we're going to ask him, because this is one of the most legendary news people of all time, known for asking really smart questions, really tough questions. So we have gone over a lot. We have so many we want to cover, but we're open, because that comes from our perspective. If anyone else has questions they want to ask Sam, you can do that in this Zoom, and you can type them in the chat, and if we have time for viewer questions, we'll get to them. Well,
I mean he's been around forever, but it's so timely too, because I look at that era that he covered, and it was a long span, but part of that era, from the late 60s to early 70s, I compare it to now because of all the turmoil. And so I think he'll have great perspective on that.
Yeah, and I've talked to him over the years about that. And he does, I mean, every time you talk to Sam Donaldson, he has amazing stories, and it always involves some massive world event that we all remember from the history books that he was front and center for. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to ask about what's happening in Ukraine right now with the Russian invasion, and the importance of journalism really on stage right now, as the Russian people don't have a free and fair press. So we're going to ask about all of those things. He also, when I asked him, had a few stories about UM Mansfield.
Oh, wow.
And so we are hoping he'll share those with the crowd tonight.
I bet he will. I bet he will. But we should say, Sam was kind of an agitator.
Yes.
He went after people. So some presidents and political leaders, didn't think a lot of Sam at times. So that's part of his story as well.
Right, and we're going to ask him about his style, how that came to be, and if he would continue with that in today's world. I mean, I think you see that a lot more now.
I think so.
Than we did back then, and he really stood out. But he really paved the way a lot of things.
Fantastic. 7 o'clock tonight. People need to register in advance. Is that correct?
Register for the Zoom link, and I think you can find that at
That's right. It'll be at KPAX.com. So anything else you want to add before we let you go here?
Oh, no. We'd love to have you. If you have questions, you can either shoot them my way beforehand, or you can ask questions actually in the event in the Zoom, in the chat. So if we have time for viewer questions, we'll get to them. But Sam, once he gets going, it's an entertaining event.
I'm looking forward to it. Maritza, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
And again, that's tonight at 7 o'clock.